retired, that wealthy people that have made their fortunes, very successful people sitting in the audience, and they're firing these questions about costs and benefits and who's going to pay for this, and does this make financial sense for companies, for organizations? And you made a very important point.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series brought to you by AKFI, Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host here with Manuel, another co-host, and our executive director at AKFI, and our special guest today, Delfina. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time joining us.
Thank you. This is an important topic.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, we're going to dive into a very practical and insightful topic on how to start your ESG and sustainability journey, and a CSO insider's view from setting the best practices to avoid the pitfalls. And thanks to this talk series, we get to bring together great minds from many others to together discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And I know, Delfina, you have abundant of experience to offer. So let me give me a quick second to introduce you briefly to our audience. Delfina has over 40 years of global experience in the energy industry, leading activities in sustainability, management consulting, general management, business transformation, project management, and financial analysis. And also, she's currently engaged by several national and international companies to assist in defining wide-scale sustainability programs, developing performance improvement strategies, and designing and implementing transformation plans. She also acts as a direct advisor on strategic issues to several executives across oil companies, government agencies, educational institutions, and investment firms. Thank you, Delfina. Just a very quick highlights on about you. We have detailed descriptions on our event page. Make sure you guys to check in more in what Delfina has been doing throughout the years. And to start our conversation, what are your thoughts on the current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation trends?
So the question is on the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Oh boy, there's a lot. This
right.
is, as you well know, this is an exciting space. It's a complex space, and making it even more broad is that it's a global space. So there are many trends. Let's see if I can hone it down to the top ones that we are seeing, and then we can dive in further any way that you'd like. First of all, I think that a trend that we are seeing, I think the most important trend that we are seeing is that the understanding, realization, and acceptance that this topic of sustainability and ESG is here to stay. It's not going away. This is not a trend. This is not a fad. It is going to be part of our organizational mindset as we move forward. As an example, let me give a great example. I can remember starting off in my career in the oil industry, the topic of HSE, health, safety, and environment, was not really discussed. I mean, we're talking 40 years ago, right? And as about 20 years ago, when we really started as an industry, as an oil and gas industry, we started to understand that we needed to make HSE part of the fabric of our organizations. And there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of skepticism that why do we have to spend so much time with this? But here we go, fast forward today, There is no oil industry without HSE. It is part of everything that we do. When we make decisions, it is embedded in how we make decisions, the decisions that ultimately are chosen. I see ESG sustainability akin to that example that we had in the oil industry. But I also see that going to be happening in a much accelerated manner. So it's not going to take us 2 decades for this to be a part of a fabric of our organizations. We're going to see years, short years, a couple, 2 to 5 years, where everybody is going to be speaking the language, and not just speaking the language, living the language. So I think that's the number one trend that I see happening. Given that, the trends that follow that are way organizations are responding. They are changing their governance structures, and not governance from the perspective of who we have on our boards, who we have on our executive teams, but also how we're remunerating those people, how we are measuring them, how we are paying them to make sure that the behaviors are aligned with what we need organizations to be doing, and that leadership is understanding that it is their responsibility to lead the way, no matter what your job is in an organization, to have sustainability on your tongue and in your heart, so that you're leading. A lot of companies are also paying a lot more attention because of recent changes like the IRA that came out not too long ago. We have CSRD coming up in Europe. Companies are really paying attention to the regulatory environment and what is coming down the pike. So the trend that we're seeing is more rigor being placed around understanding compliance issues, regulatory issues, and then gearing up to be able to respond to those. In conjunction with that, the investment community, this is not a new trend, but this is a continuing trend. The investment community is also demanding that sort of rigor, transparency, measurement to be occurring. Following that is the services from companies that can provide organizations with the help. For example, the major tax advisory companies are gearing up to be able to help companies do that reporting that is going to be necessary. It's a big boom for them. Additionally, you're seeing professional services and from a consulting perspective, helping companies get organized around this. And then on a product side, you're seeing a huge investment in information technology, software services that can help companies get organized, and even more innovation in technologies that can help companies measure, manage, and monitor things like emissions. Lots of exciting things going on in that space. And then how do you actually use that information and that data through things like AI, digital twins, right? Using the Internet of Things, putting sensors out there. So startups are there, big companies are investing in these technologies. And then finally, I would say the other thing that we are seeing outside of the oil industry, not just in the oil industry, outside of the oil industry, is tremendous innovation in supply chains. So in the supply chain, it's about procuring all the raw materials, making what you're going to make, getting that shipped off to the end user. That entire supply chain is seeing innovation from a sustainability perspective and exciting things on how companies are reformulating their products, repackaging their products to make things more sustainable, to answer the needs of the consumer. So there's a lot. I could talk about this all day, but those are really the major trends.
And we'd love to have you here the whole day, or at least to come back to the show soon. But you gave us a really great 360 degrees kind of picture, and to somewhat unfair question because we're talking about the future in general as well. I like what you said about the supply chain. We have a white paper showing that the supply chains are still put in the middle of different requirements from different aggregator and manufacturers like car industry, right? So every manufacturer has different requirements. So it's not a day too soon to have technology brought in to address at least some of these issues.
Agreed.
But I'll turn a little bit and go back to the role of CSO, and we have another white paper in AKFI trying to determine how the CSO reports and what is the influence of the reporting line, and also the influence of resources, budgets, and people that are allocated to the function of sustainability. In other words, a low reporting line or a reporting line, let's say to marketing, may indicate a tendency to smooth over the sustainability. Let's not call it greenwashing. Reporting to legal would be more, as we know, more conformance and compliance. So we try to determine this. How do you see the role of the CSO in different industries? You've been a CSO, you will be a CSO, hopefully in near future, if that's your desire. So tell us a little bit, give us the view from the chair of a CSO.
First of all, there's no one answer for an organization. You're always going to find that whenever you ask me a question, that I don't have cookie cutter answers, because this is a topic that needs to fit into every organization as it exists. So the first thing that I would say is you commented about who and where a chief sustainability officer reports into. There's only one answer to that question, and they need to report to the CEO. If an organization really truly is serious about their sustainability, the chief sustainability officer will report to the CEO and will have a seat at that table. I mean, the title is chief sustainability officer. So the chief sustainability officer, the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, the chief information officer, they report to the CEO. Now, there's always exceptions, right? There are some exceptions in organizations where it just might not make sense. But for the most part, that is where that sits. Organizations will also, we see, based on their outlook, based on their focus, based on their stakeholders and what they're trying to achieve with the Office of Sustainability, they will many times, I've seen this a lot, they will many times not just have a chief sustainability officer. They'll have somebody that is maybe your chief legal officer and your chief sustainability officer holding the same role. So there'll be legal and sustainability, or human resources and sustainability, or chief administrative officer and chief sustainability officer. And my absolute favorite is combining the strategy role and the sustainability role, because that tells you that organization understands that sustainability is strategic to their future. So that's my favorite. Now, I think you were asking also, like, what other departments or organizations need to report up into the CSO? Was that also part of your question?
It wasn't, but it is now.
Okay. Sorry about that. But
no problem. So, we like the flow of the conversation, so thank you.
So what I would say is I do not believe that there is a cookie cutter, again, approach to this is who has to report into the CSO. A lot of organizations, what they will do is they will combine things like legal and compliance, or especially compliance and risk into the office of the CSO. You see a lot of that. You also see marketing functions, not the entire marketing department, but marketing functions reporting into the CSO to be able to manage that. It depends on the company and how the CSO needs to show up within the organization in addition to outside the organization. So the CSO has two roles. The CSO is the face to the world to say, hey, this is what our company is doing. This is what we're all about. This is what's important to us. And this is what we want you, world, to know and to understand, whether you're our investors or our customers or on our board of directors, how we want to show up to the outside world. But the CSO also has an extremely important job, and that's to show up inside the organization. And that job is actually not about being a chief sustainability officer. It's being about a transformational leader. Internally to an organization, the number one job of the CSO is to help the organization transform from not talking about all this stuff to now having to do this stuff and embed the concepts and the activities that must occur inside the organization. So you have got to be that type of person that when you go walking down the hall towards somebody, they're opening up their arms to say, Delfina, you're here, versus, oh gosh, here she comes, run and hide, because she's going to have us do some sustainability thing that we don't want to do, right? So knowing how to be a transformational leader is the number one responsibility internally, in my opinion.
Oh, that's excellent. Not that I know many people that, men or women, that can stretch in all these directions. And just to make the picture a little bit more challenging, we need to add actually that many times sustainability, and I know this from talking with students in Cornell, for instance. The challenge is, okay, this is a cost center. This is the role of the CFO to cut if something is happening with the profit line, which usually does. So there is this part also to this complex person, this complex profile. And last but not least, she should walk the talk and talk about AI, ChatGPT, technology, and all this, because as you mentioned very clearly in the first part of the conversation, supply chains and actually internally, a lot of innovation needs to happen to operationalize, to make it really flow smoothly through the organization. So you did a great job description, and we're so happy to have you, with all your experience already as a CSO and the CSO and actually hiring CSOs, not only being one of them.
Can I make a comment on something very important that you said? And so I was recently up at Cornell, and we had a wonderful session around the topic of sustainability and ESG, led by Dean Caroli, who we know and we love, right? And it was an alumni session. So of course you have former members of Wall Street that retired, that wealthy people that have made their fortunes, very successful people sitting in the audience, and they're firing these questions about costs and benefits and who's going to pay for this, and does this make financial sense for companies, for organizations? And you made a very important point about being a cost center. And I'm going to come back to my favorite combined role that an organization can give a person, and that is the combination of strategy and sustainability. Because if you address this properly, you understand that sustainability is really not a cost center. It is a competitive advantage for your organization. And if you do it right, if you innovate properly, and you provide the products and services that your consumers need, and you provide the discipline, the organizational discipline to embed ESG criteria into your operations, you're answering to your investors who also impact your economic well-being. And so this is a competitive advantage. It is not a cost center. It is strategic to your organization, and it will make you sustainable as an organization. So I'm going to throw in one more of the things that I love to say that I think is really important for companies for people, companies, the world to understand, is that the key is for organizations to be sustainable. That means they survive and thrive within the global environment to where they're creating no harm and positive impact in the world. So organizational sustainability and global sustainability go hand in hand. That is the key.
Absolutely. And, taking the conversation to some of our previous guests, one observation struck me is it started the discussion with sort of the death of the strategy. I'm sure there are many books written to that, also to the contrary, right? But one observation for an organizer of an event with CSOs once a year, he takes the executives and put them into a mind share of 30 years out. So now people, with gray hair like me think about legacy. They think about what is left behind. And suddenly they realize that sustainability must happen for their following generations. So it's a great insight to give us, and correlates with this observation, because quarterly reports, annual reports push for this. Show me the numbers. Show me the sustainability is positive in 3 weeks or 3 months. So great insight. Thank you, Delfina. And we are also lucky here because Isabella is a futurist, so she's really looking at the future, especially the future in the realm of technology and how it impacts our lives, how it impacts our future, really, and how it intertwines with sustainability, or intertwines with ESG and the enterprises. She wrote a book a year ago called The Digital Mind of Tomorrow, and my joke is now the digital mind of today, because things are accelerated to that level. So, Isabella, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Well, I want to hear more from Delfina, because I think you are on the spot to educate us, to explain, I'm serious, to really understand the role of sustainability and ESG development. For example, you describe it as a strategic move. It should be top down throughout the breadth of your organization management. It's not a department role. Like, let's set a department, so only you guys work on this and the rest of us function as usual. And another thing I think you pointed out, strategic, and what's the other one? I think it's very core.
Transformation.
About the function. Oh, yes, the function. You described it as a function. You don't just, like, the title, yes, matters, the description matters, but I think you pointed out the function of ESG. It's a transformational process. And I think only when we try to understand it from that level, we can really take actions to act upon it. Otherwise, it's the scenario you're describing. People will run away from it because it's a change. It doesn't mean anything better, maybe, to them, and they don't really appreciate that. So those are two things I think you perfectly demonstrated in a very easy to understand framework. And about me, the future, I just think it's impossible to bypass the topic of sustainability. We're looking to the future. So you're absolutely right about this. It's not a trend. This is what is coming to us as a fact, and we need to act upon it as soon as possible and to figure out a way to act on it as soon as possible.
Well, let me comment on two things that you said. One is that if I gave you the impression that it is a top-down approach, then I was lacking in my ability to communicate. And when we talk about transformation, I have a tried and true way of approaching transformation in an organization. I've done this with monstrous organizations. I've done with smaller organizations. I've even done it at Cornell, Manuel.
We'll take it offline.
You'll take that offline, right? So transformation is not only top down, but it is bottom up, and it's throughout. And there are many organizations that are surviving and thriving in the area of sustainability because of the tremendous leadership coming from the sustainability office. And the chief sustainability officer, he or she may not feel like the other CXOs have his or her back, but they're still making a lot of progress. So just because, and this is another thing to take into consideration, you may see chief executives talking and saying the right things and having their picture in their annual reports and the sustainability reports and whatever, but behind closed doors, that's not the truth. And that's not what they're communicating inside their organizations. So this is why the job of the CSO has to be a powerful transformational leader. Another point that's important, and that is the approach. And this goes to your concept also, Isabella, of being futuristic. When the approach inside of an organization is you as the leader have got to go to the different departments, functions within the organization and meet them where they're at. So you in the supply chain department, what can we do together from the perspective of sustainability? What do you need? What are you seeing? That may be different than what we're seeing in a different department, right? You've got to meet them where they're at. And you also have to be prepared that whatever you do, whatever you say, okay, we're going to go do this process over here and we're going to change it. But you have to be prepared that it's going to evolve. It's going to change. And that's good because it's about what we need in the future. And we're just working our way towards that. So meet people where they're at and expect it to evolve. And what you're going to see, it's miraculous. The organization starts to come together and cross-pollinate and synchronize with each other. And it's just a beautiful thing to see when everybody does coalesce. And leadership always takes credit for it, right? And that's okay. That's okay. And there's some organizations, there's some really, really super clever CSOs out there that what they've done is they've even adopted the language of the organization. For example, if you're a Kaizen organization, if you're a Lean Six Sigma organization, put that sustainability language, put sustainability into that language, and then you're going to be able to communicate better. So again, the CSO's got to be very clever and work with the company that they're serving, because the CSO is a service job. You're there to serve the needs of the organization. Sorry, my little rant.